I'm Gabe Lullo, and welcome to the Do Hard Things podcast. We're talking to go-to-market leaders and entrepreneurs who have conquered the challenges, the hustle, and the grind. Get ready for real talk, real insights, and no fluff.
But the hardest thing in the world right now is not actually closing deals, it's actually getting somebody's attention.
If you don't have that hook in that first 5 to 10 seconds, guess what? They're going to scroll to the next one.
You need to go in and you need to make it sound like yourself. That's the biggest piece of the puzzle. And I promise you, we can all tell.
The people that are trolls and the people that are haters never done the thing that you're doing.
I love doing this podcast because I get a front row seat to some of the greatest minds in sales.
Gone are the days of saying stay in your lane. When you're an executive leader and you're an enterprise-wide leader, there are no lanes. You've got to be partners.
Curiosity is like when the type of questions you ask is sometimes the value that you bring.
I need you to tell me when you're ready to buy or what you're ready to do. And I think it's changed so much into like adding more value. And if you're not doing that, then you're definitely going to come off as desperate.
High pressure selling is like a dinosaur tactic at this point.
No parent is like, oh, you should be a salesperson when you grow up, right? Everyone's like a doctor, lawyer, whatever crap. It's never salespeople.
It's not your job to motivate people. It's your job to find motivated people.
It's not cockiness. It's not arrogance. It's confidence knowing I know this and I know that I can help you.
From where I started to where I am today is all because I learned how to sell.
And there's too many people who have only been doing this for 5 freaking minutes. Sit down, close your mouth, actually go out there and get yourself beat up, then come back and tell me if something is dead or not.
That is exactly why I started this podcast, because right there, that's the epitome of doing hard things.
Welcome back to the Do Hard Things podcast with Lexi and Gabe. Today's guest is Dean Harrison, better known as the Yacht Chef, a self-described delinquent from a small beachside town in Australia who couldn't sit still in a classroom but could break down a kitchen. He started at 15, making $4.20 an hour, chopping parsley for hours while chefs laughed at him from the back door. He survived abuse that would end careers today, quit, nearly walked away from cooking entirely, and then found his footing in a family-style restaurant that reminded him why he loved it in the first place. He left Australia at 18 and spent the next decade cooking on super yachts across the world. He's had royalty visit his gallery, survived being captured by rebels, cooked through a 6-day storm nearly capsizing between Australia and New Zealand, and built an online community to help the next generation of yacht chefs find their way. Dean, welcome to the show.
Dean, you're here. We're so excited. We just heard your bio, and we were in the green room, and we were just saying how awesome this is to have you on the show. And you've influenced so many on Instagram with your stories and your content, and inspiring chefs all around the world. So I'm a big foodie, as you know. So we're really excited to hear about how you got started in this and your success thus far. How you doing, man? Welcome to the show.
I'm good. Yeah, I'm here to share my story and to hopefully get people excited about becoming yacht chefs.
Yes, yacht chefs, which is an unbelievable term, right? And you are the yacht chef. I mean, on the internet, everyone looks at you to learn how to do this, and your stories, your travel, your excursions are just epic. I want to start by peeling back the onion a bit, not to be pun intended on food, but I want to hear that origin story, right? Like, where did this all start for you? Because you told us you were a delinquent when you were a kid, right? You hated school, you rebelled hard. The only class you didn't hate was cooking, obviously. But what was going on back then when you look back, and what did you think about that version of you? Actually really needed school. What was it working for you then?
Yeah, I think just going back and I wasn't someone that learned the way that a lot of people learn in school. I was someone that was hands-on and really enjoyed the process of creating something and seeing it almost instantly. So I really excelled in home economics, which was a cooking school back then in Australia. And it was just something I really enjoyed. And I'd literally finish like 30 minutes before all the other kids, and I'd sit in the corner and the teacher was like, whoa, that was actually really fast. And I was like, actually, I enjoy this. This is kind of cool. And I started cooking for my grandparents and my parents and stuff back at home. And they really enjoyed it. I mean, looking back, it wasn't that special, but it was pretty cool for a 13-year-old to be able to like whip something up, especially without the social media and the internet that we didn't have back then. It was kind of just by feel and I didn't have any recipe books either. So going back to that, I hated school, and I would literally fall asleep in class in whatever it was, and I'd walk off. I'd just go walk home. My home was like 3-minute walk away, and then my mum was like, "What are you doing?" I was like, I really don't enjoy school." And she said, "Well, you have to do something." I was like, "Well, I love cooking." And she introduced me to a chef at one of the restaurants in my hometown in Noosa. There's lots of amazing restaurants there. I was quite lucky. So I kind of got pushed into that when I was 14.
Nice story. Yeah. And I know you were saying that once you were working there, you spent hours chopping parsley while the chef sat outside laughing at you. Most kids your age would have been like, I'm done with this, going home. I never want to do this again. What kept you going?
Yeah, I think there's been multiple points in my career where it's just like, what am I doing with my life? But this very beginning of like going from, we had 6 hours at school, probably 2 of those were lunch breaks. And now I've been thrown into a 12-hour shift in the kitchen as a 15-year-old. It's like, whoa. And, the chef mentality back then was just like, abusive, and it was kind of just like they love to play pranks and games, I guess you want to call them, but it was a lot of physical stuff, mental stuff. And yeah, my first experience was chopping parsley for about 5 hours was my first job in the kitchen. And I could see the chefs on the crates, the milk crates out the back, smoking cigarettes, and I would be like, "Is that enough?" And they're like, "Nope, keep going." 5 hours later, I chopped some parsley, got one job done. So that was my introduction into the restaurant world.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many different shows like The Bear and like all these great movies that really talk about that hardcore, I guess club, if you will. But back then, it was like you were physically grabbed, right? You were dragged out back. You said to us that you were like branded with a kitchen spoon that was like burnt on the gas. Like that's not tough kitchen culture. That's like assault, right? What
Yeah.
did that do, and how do you make sense of it now?
Look, I think, The Bear pretty much captures that. I get like PTSD kind of watching it. I got through it, but that's kind of like that. Probably double or triple amount of what it was when I first started. Yeah, I mean, like one time I accidentally left. We smoked our own salmon, and we had to heat up a spoon super red hot on the gas stove. And I would have to run out the back, put the smoke in the salmon box, and then I forgot to take the spoon off where it was no big deal. I forgot to take the spoon off and put it in the sink. And I went to go grab something out of the oven. The chef grabs my wrist and basically brands me with the spoon. It stuck to my skin, and I had a bit of a scar there. And so it was normal. He goes, "You're not going to do that again, are you?" And I was like, "Whoa!" Just like 15 years old, just you know. And then
Yeah.
another time was another chef came in like a little bit hungover, probably did some drugs the night before, and he pretty much said, "You better be ready for today." And I was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna be ready." He said, "What did you say?" And basically attacked me, picked me up by the neck, and pulled me outside into the locker room and shoved me in the lockers. And that was kind of my first breaking point that I ever, got to where I called my mom. I said, "I want to do this," just crying, just like, what am I doing with my life? So yeah, that was my first real kitchen experience at my first restaurant.
Wow, that's very intense. And then you said you quit, took a few months off, nearly didn't come back. What pulled you back into it, and what was different that second time around?
You know what? I think I lived in a small town. It was easy to get in trouble there because it was just, my parents gave me freedom, and I started driving earlier than I probably legally should have. So I had a lot of freedom, and I was just getting up to no good, um, yeah, with the stuff in my town. So I got to a point where like, okay, I need to do something again here, and okay, let's give this cooking thing a try. So I got a introduction to another restaurant, and it was totally different from my first experience, because the first experience was very much like Michelin style. Everything has to be perfect. Don't screw up. And this one was like, I had great mentors. They were like, "Yep, like do it this way, whatever." They guide me a little bit more, and the abuse basically stopped. So that kind of reignited my passion for cooking and guided me in the right direction, helped me understand that you don't need to be an asshole to, create a good chef.
Yeah, I mean, we're touching on something like super important, so I want to pull this out. and that's culture, right? Because as you mentioned, you went from that kitchen where it was very abusive and hardcore, but then you go to this almost like a family-like kitchen with mentors and coaches and trainers, and it completely changed it, the way you looked at the profession. So take us through just that difference between environments, right? Ones that just destroy people and one that builds people up, and how important is culture right now in your community currently today?
Yeah, I think the yacht chef industry is a little bit different because it's not as a big brigade. But for me, I what I took from that was that I don't want to be treated like that, so I'm not going to treat someone else like that. And there's certain ways that you can go about it to be able to tell someone to do something or not do something. And I don't think that was the right way. So I think, if I hadn't have gone to that second restaurant, I don't know if I would be a chef today. Just because it just gave me a different perspective on how I can take on this world and be a better chef.
Yeah, definitely. And after almost 4 years in the industry, you said you felt accomplished and felt like all the hard stuff was for something, but you really weren't sure what that thing was. Then something happened. What was it that made it all click for you?
I think I just knew I'm someone that I don't chase jobs for, um, I don't chase jobs for the money. I chase jobs for the experience and for taking me somewhere. I traveled a lot when I was younger. I went to 11 different schools just because my family had to move around for jobs. So I had this kind of ingrained in me where I saw the world. I lived in New Zealand, I lived in Chile and in South America. I lived all over Australia. So there was a part of me that just felt like there was so much more out there that I need to explore. So I took a one-way ticket to Europe, thinking I was going to be there for 3 months, and we end up seeing the big super yachts in Antibes in the south of France, and it just triggered something in me where I was like, they have to have chefs on there. So it created a journey for me to want to be on these yachts and travel the world and yeah, see what it was like.
So let's talk about these travels because 11 different schools. You went from Australia to Europe when you were 18. I mean, that's a huge leap to be all over, the place. There's no safety net there when you made that big shift. It's around the world for you. So, what were you chasing? Were you scared? Was it nerves? Was it, fear? How did you push through that at such a young age?
Yeah, I think it was just I don't know. I didn't have any fear or anything like that. I think I knew I had the tools to succeed, I guess.
Yeah.
There were moments, me and my friends traveled Europe for about 2 years, and we got down to our last, 50 euros basically. And we're desperately at the internet cafes there, $2 an hour, I think they were back then, spending our last euros to try and look for jobs and figure out a way around staying in Europe and not having to come back, almost like our tails in between our legs, like we didn't succeed. In my mind, I was like, for us to succeed, we need to do something in Europe and get on yachts or whatever. But we ended up getting job in chalets, and we did winter seasons in the French Alps. Wasn't as good of pay, but it led us to another conversation with a yacht chef that lived there, saying that he worked on yachts and he literally spends all winter off because he gets paid so much in the summer. And I was like, okay, this just confirms that I need to get on yachts.
So once you're on yachts, you've been there for nearly a decade, billionaires, royalty, celebrities, you're getting to see everything. What does the world actually look like from inside where you are, and how do you perform at such a high level under that pressure and expectation?
You kind of get thrown into it, and I think a lot of people. I think when I started 13 years ago, there wasn't a lot of information out there, and especially no social media. There was no videos of anything. It was kind of just like, you couldn't have tattoos, you couldn't smoke, you couldn't have piercings. There was all these things that the industry was like, wow, this is a scary place where certain people aren't allowed ethnicities, and they're looking for a certain type of look, and it's very you kind of just get thrown into it and you kind of adapt as you go along. Um, and I started on smaller boats. So I started actually on dive boats on the Great Barrier Reef. And that was kind of my introduction into being on the sea and see if I get seasick. And then I gradually just moved up from there from 30 meters all the way to 88 meters. But I think you just learn on the way. I made a lot of mistakes, and I wish I knew what it was actually like to live and work and breathe the job, basically year round at the beginning.
So any crazy stories about, life at sea? I mean, there's one I know weren't you captured by a Libyan rebel and like you were held by the government for like 24 hours and negotiated release? Like I was hearing this story and Lexi was telling me, I'm like, that's crazy. Can you take us
Yeah.
through that one? And is there any others that you can think of?
Yeah, definitely. I've got plenty of stories. Honestly, one thing about yachting is the stories, and not only the crew that you meet, but the guests that you meet. It's like
Right.
there's so many different aspects to this industry that just opens you up to different networks and stories and people. But the particular Libyan pirate story, I actually just remembered that the other day. I was like, holy shit, that happened. Um, we were on a small, well, 37-meter sail yacht, and we were crossing all the way from Indonesia, Thailand, all the way across to where did we stop? Oman, all those places. So basically up through the Suez Canal. And we have guards on during that Sea of Aden period where the pirates usually are. So we had three armed guards with machine guns, all that kind of stuff. And we're like, okay, we're pretty safe. This is the usual spot that people get captured. So we got up to the Red Sea where we drop off the security guards, and okay, cool. We're on the home stretch. We're heading into the Mediterranean. Mediterranean's safe, right?
Right.
It's not as safe as I thought. So we come out through the Red Sea and the weather is horrific. Like we're in this little sail yacht and we're just punching into these massive waves. So the captain made a decision to hug the coast of Libya. You kind of come around, hug the coast instead of heading up to like Malta and Cyprus and all that, which isn't the usual route, but we just had to because of the weather. So we take shifts. We take like 4-hour shifts, two on, two off. So yeah, 3 rotations of 4-hour shifts. And I was asleep at the time, and the deckhand comes in shaking me. She's like, "You need to get up now. There's something happening. There's people with guns." And I'm just like, I'm not even awake yet, just going, "What is going on? What are you talking about?" I'm coming out in my undies basically, and these guys have got guns pointed at us with a aircraft carrier gun on the back of the boat, all like backed up to the boat saying, we're coming on board. And we're just like, the captain, because this is I guess a $12 million boat. So the captain was like, no, like stay back. You're going to ruin the paint job. And I'm just going, they've got guns. I don't think the paint job is our biggest concern right now. So what they did was they convinced us to come from international waters where we were safe, where they couldn't technically touch us. And they said, we need to come into the port, which was up near Benghazi there. I think it was the top of Libya. But they basically lured us in. So then we're in their waters, and they tied us up at this dock. And they convinced us that ISIS was out there capturing people and there was a war happening. And I was just like, I never heard of this. We're in the Med. But they convinced us that was happening, and they said, oh no, there's American warship out there, fighting these pirates, fighting ISIS. So we're kind of just like, this is so weird. And this is back before we had internet on the yachts. We only had like a satellite.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went into like emergency mode. I'm like, I'm putting water, food, all these things into the Citadel, which is the engine room where we could lock ourselves into if something happened. And everyone's like, calm down, that it's all good. I'm kind of like seeing past the friendliness of it all, because they asked all the girls to cover up and get below because they can't be here and all these other things. So anyway, they tie us up, and are told we can't leave. And we're just going, this is super weird. So we start calling the management, which calls all the embassies. We have Brazilian nationals, Australian, French, and English on board. So all the embassies get called. And then they realize they've kind of screwed up because the pressure has been put on the general in the area. So now the general comes down. We've been like captured for about 10 hours now already. And he comes down in this big convoy with about 25, 30 guys. And he actually comes on board and kind of says, you can't keep these guys. Like, what are you doing here? And we had to film this. I still have memories, but we had to film this video and there was about 20 guys were on the boat, 20 guys standing behind this camera. And I'm like, man, this is like one of those like beheading videos. We're standing there tired, defeated. We just want to get out of there. And they're basically telling us to say, look, we didn't do anything to you guys. We didn't touch the women. We didn't harm anybody. We just need this on camera so we could send it off to the embassies and say that we're letting you go. And I'm just like, man, this is it. Like, we're done.
Right.
So anyway, we film, do the video, and then they're like, start to throw the lines. And then everyone starts yelling. And we're like, no, so what the hell's going on now? So they're yelling and they stop, they tie us back up and they held us and they're yelling at each other, having this conversation. 30 minutes goes by and finally they let us go. The captain's like pleading. He's like almost in tears because he's like, please, we just want to go. And so anyway, they finally let us go. And yeah, that was kind of it. But we entered Mallorca and the Spanish police saw that we went into Libya. And so we have now woken up again. There's a helicopter above us with a spotlight. There's police that came on board. They literally didn't even ask us. They've come on board, about 10 military police, woke us all up and said, like, they're looking for drugs. They're looking for humans. They're looking for, I don't know what they're looking for, but they're like, why did you guys go to Libya? Like, that's, you can't be doing that. So anyway, we just had like a full on another thing of this happening, but luckily it was Spain and it was all good.
Wow. That is a crazy story. I can't believe that you lived through all
Yeah.
of that and then just came through on the other side.
Yeah, we didn't expect it because we were in the Med and it was just a little bit of a surprise. But honestly, like, look, we met the crew and stuff on board on the boat, and we're trying to keep the peace a little bit, I think. But I think it could have turned and we could have been, kept there for a while if we didn't do something about it.
Yeah. And you said that you guys had to take that route because of weather. And then on another story, you survived a 6-day storm between Australia and New Zealand. You lost the stabilizer. You thought the boat was going to capsize. Was that like, oh my God, this is going to happen to us again? What was going through your mind in that point?
Yeah, so this was a few years before, but I was on a 30-meter yacht, the first super yacht I worked on. And this thing was made for going fast and being in like the Mediterranean, let's say. It wasn't meant to be a boat that goes on South Pacific crossings, which we were crossing from Australia to Fiji. And so this thing was meant to cruise at 15, 16 knots. We're cruising at about 10 knots. So this thing doesn't move the same when you're cruising at that kind of a speed. But we, at the same period that we did that crossing, there was a race happening at that same time where the Vodafone catamaran broke the world record because the weather was so crazy, the wind was so strong that this catamaran actually broke the record during that period. They did it in about 3.5 days and we crossed in 6 days. So this thing flew. That's how bad the weather was.
Wow.
And 2 other crew members died on 2 other boats during this period on smaller sailboats, just to give you a bit of an idea of what we're going through. And we tried to outrun this storm, and we basically followed this thing across the whole entire South Pacific. And we got to a point where the stabilizers basically keep your boat from rocking too much, and it's run by a hydraulic system, which actually overheated on maybe day 4. But this thing basically overheated, and we went into just being thrown about. And I remember almost the second level touching the waves, which is just, I get sick kind of thinking about it, but it's just, everything was falling apart. The TVs were falling off the walls. Everything was coming out of the cupboards. We weren't eating because it was too rough. And I literally thought, if this thing flips, I need to think of a way of, when it's upside down, I need to remember how to get out of here. And I had I slept with my snorkel gear, like my master snorkel. So I thought that I would have to swim my way out because I was going to capsize and die. So that was the only point in my career that I thought I was actually going to die. The pirates that wasn't a period where I thought I was that much trouble. But yeah, one of the other people couldn't even get out of bed because I was completely frozen and in absolute mess. And then we had the captain that we had to go to manual steering. Usually we have a GPS that directs us, but we had to change to manual steering so the boat wouldn't flip and fall apart. So he was up there for about 24 hours steering the boats, no sleep, nothing, because I was a chef. We had a stewardess and a temporary guy on, so he had to just take charge of the vessel and get us safely across to Fiji.
So looking
Unbelievable.
back, would you always stay on this super yacht chef journey, or do you think you would have preferred to do it on land?
No, 100%. Like, these are the stories that I look back at and just think, uh, when else would a chef or anyone else be able to do these things and have these stories? Like, absolutely love the ocean and just everything that the yachting industry can give to you, like all the opportunities. It's just been so incredible. Like, they're the horrible stories, but I have so many amazing stories that I could go on for days and talk about.
Share one, because we've heard two horror stories. We want to
Okay.
inspire we want to inspire future yacht chefs on this show. So what is an epic, win, if you will? Because you talk about the networking, you talk about the people you meet, the billionaires, the famous people. You talk about, obviously, all the opportunities of advancing, your culinary skills and providing this to a community around you in the yachting community. Take us through a win or two.
Yeah, I'll take you through my favorites. So the first ones when you first join the career, when you first join this industry, is the experiences you get. You don't get to do these unless you are the millionaire or billionaire that owns a yacht. So you're kind of coming along with these adventures, these crazy adventures that they come up with, like going to Raja Ampat, one of the most beautiful places to dive in the world, and swimming. You're the only people there swimming with whale sharks and manta rays and fishing in these most remote locations and going to villages that have never seen outsiders before and asking them a question like, stupidly, what do you do for a living? And he said, what do you mean, what do I do? I fish, I hunt, I grow my food, I eat. And I was like, just like talking to people like that, you wouldn't be able to do that unless you're on a super yacht. So that's one of my favorite things about this industry, is just getting to experience what you couldn't usually experience on a normal trip somewhere, because you can't get to these remote locations. The second thing is the owners of these vessels. You, as a chef, you get to talk to them quite often. Talk about food and stuff, so you get quite close. And these people have only gotten to this point in their life, or owning a yacht, is because they've done something special, or they've done something right. So as much as I can, I talk to them about other things than food, just to get to know them. And I pitched a TV show to one of the owners of a yacht, and he knew someone that had a network that took on that show. So these opportunities that you get to have FaceTime with these owners is like one of my favorite things about this industry.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I know something that you've brought up is work-life balance is very important to you. What does that look like for you now?
Yeah, so once you get quite established into your career, you have what is called a rotational position, which is basically either 6, 8, or 10 weeks on, and then the same off. But you get paid all year round the same salary, which is a lot bigger salaries than restaurant chefs. So your work-life balance, at the beginning, you're enjoying absolutely everything, so it's not such a big deal just to get 42 days off a year. But gradually, as you grow through the industry, that rotational position becomes pretty important to have a home, start a family, do all these very land-based things, I guess, to establish yourself. So that, for me, I've been a rotational chef for the past kind of 7, 8 years. And it's so important for me to have that time off. I travel the world, I eat at all these, amazing places. I eat street food, I eat Michelin food, and it makes you feel revived when you come back to the job. So that's kind of what it looks like. I've been traveling the world on the yacht, and then I travel the world on my time off as well.
And now you're ultra successful with content. You have a massive following. You're documenting everything you're doing. Why are you choosing to do that? Because, of course, it's not your day job. Your day job is to cook and to provide amazing food, but you're also, creating a story around what you're doing and sharing that with the world. and so many people are gravitating to your content. Why are you doing that, and why is content so important to you right now?
Well, just going back to when I traveled Europe, my grandfather, I was always interested in filming. So he gave me a video camera when I traveled, and I just love to just film everything. I love to capture. This was back in the day when there was no, I think Facebook just became a thing, but I just enjoyed the memory, creating a video down into 5 minutes to remember that time in your life. So I always enjoyed it, and I think translating that to showing people what it was like to be a yacht chef was just I just really enjoyed that whole thing of like exposing people to something that they'd never seen before. And I was just I enjoyed videography and editing and just showing behind the scenes. So it gradually just got more and more, and just I could see that something was working. I didn't know what it was at that time, but it's all in the last kind of 3 years kind of made sense to me of what I was going to do with this beast that I created.
Yeah, it's truly incredible and so inspirational. Thank you so much for sharing all the stories. Everything's been super incredible. Can't wait to get this to the audience. Where's the best place for people listening that want to see your content and want to follow along on your journeys?
Yeah, so you can follow at the Yacht Chef, or if people want to get into this industry, want to find out a little bit more, I'm launching a course in about 2 weeks now that is filmed on board, and it shows you, me sweating and working, the good, the bad, the ugly, everything in between, to show you what it's like and to help you decide if you want to become a yacht chef. So that's Become a Yacht Chef on Instagram, and then becomeayachtchef.com if they want to join up to that wait list.
Well, you heard it, everybody. Go follow Dean, follow his content. It is absolutely inspirational. And if you want to be a yacht chef, go reach out to him and take his course so you can learn how to do it. And have the amazing stories that you just shared with us, man. That was incredible. Thank you so much for taking us on that ride. So everyone, thank you so much for listening. Keep doing the hard things this week. And Lexi and I will see you on the next one. Thanks, Dean.
Thanks, guys. See you later.